Hi, I'm Lynn White. I'm the Education and Volunteer Specialist at Butler Soil and Water Conservation District, and today we're going to be talking about interactions within an ecosystem. We're going to focus on interactions that are caused by this animal. Now, I know this one is just a puppet, but this animal does live here in southwest Ohio, including here in Butler County, and you may have seen one on your travels if you've been out around creeks and rivers or around ponds or wetlands. But this is the North American beaver, and we often like think about beaver, and one of the first things you think of are their big flat tail that they use to help them as a rudder when they're swimming, or as a kickstand to hold them upright when they're doing one of their amazing things, which is chewing down trees. In fact, here is part of a tree that a beaver was cutting down in one of the parks around here, and you can see the teeth marks in it. Imagine being able to chew down a tree with your teeth. Well, if you wanted to do it, you'd have a few problems. You'd probably break your teeth, and if you didn't break your teeth, they'd get worn away. So beavers have got special teeth. They're in a family called rodents, which are a type of mammal, but what makes a rodent special are that their teeth are always growing. So if this beaver was chewing on a tree and its teeth were to get worn away, they would grow back. If this beaver was chewing on a tree and it was to break a tooth, then its tooth would grow back. Not like us, we only get our baby teeth and then our adult teeth. But these guys, their teeth are always growing. And you see that they're that kind of gross orange color on the outside. That is a special material that's in there. It's iron, which is a mineral that makes their teeth stronger. On the inside, their teeth are white, like yours, and that material is softer. So when they're chewing on the trees, it keeps their teeth naturally sharp. Now, they chew on trees for several different reasons. One is because they eat the trees. They'll eat soft wood and bark from a lot of trees like cottonwoods and willows that you find around here. They also use those trees to build a few different things. And you may or may not have seen a beaver dam built before, but they're really cool to find, and they can be huge. The largest one in Ohio was in Columbiana County, and I'll let you look at a map to find out where that is, but it was 1,200 feet long. Now the dams are usually about 4 foot tall and about 4 or 5 foot wide as well, but 1,200 foot long, and that was just the largest in Ohio. The largest one that was ever found was in Canada, and you could actually see it from space. It was so big. So a lot of work goes into the dams that the beavers build. And the reason they build the dam is that they want to create this area of deep water behind it. And it gives it somewhere to build its home. And so this is a picture of a beaver lodge, which is a name for a beaver shelter. And the beaver lodge, they build in that deeper area of water, and it allows them to have entrances that are underwater, which helps with protecting them. So we've got basically 2 doors. So if an animal was to try and attack them coming in one, they could escape out the other. But most animals are not going to try and get underwater to get in the entrance. And you can see how thick the roof is, that they don't, it's rather hard for them to be able to attack them through the roof as well. It's not just beavers that will make use of this. Several other animals have been found living within beaver lodges, and I'm not just talking about tiny insects. Some other smaller rodents have been found living in them as well. So when the beaver is building its shelter, it's actually providing shelter for some other animals as well. But it's not just the lodge that it's providing for other animals. Do you remember I said it made that area of deep water? Well, it ends up providing water year-round in areas that may have dried up during the dry seasons. And so it completely changes the ecosystem in that area. You can take an area that just had a small creek flowing through it. When the beaver builds a dam, that small creek will back up and create a huge pond or a huge wetland. So that huge change in the ecosystem is going to be important for some animals. Now, important doesn't always mean good. Important could always be bad. But there's a lot of animals that you can find living in these wetland areas that beavers have built. So we can get birds like this. This is a great blue heron, and they're found throughout southern Ohio. These guys, as you can see the water in the background, they really appreciate when the beaver moves in. It provides them access to their food, which are a lot of small fish and things like that. Here's another big wading bird that enjoys the water. This is a giant egret. Again, it's in that water looking for its next meal, its fish. Lots of amphibians like frogs and salamanders also benefit from having that new watery habitat. Especially some of the animals like bullfrogs that need water that's going to be permanent water because their tadpoles take so many years to develop into fully grown frogs. So when beavers move in, they make huge changes to that ecosystem. And it can be seen as positive for the animals that I showed here. But can you think of any animals that are not going to appreciate the forest or the meadow being flooded? One of them are humans. A lot of humans are not impressed when their farm field or their yards begin to flood with the beavers. And so some people see a beaver coming in and building that dam as a negative thing. However, we've found that beaver dams actually help with flooding downstream. With so many built up areas with roads and parking lots and roofs and everything else, nowadays when it rains, a lot of that water is hitting the surface, running across the surface of the ground and going straight into the rivers and streams. And so after heavy rains, you see rivers, the level of the water rising really quick and that water moving really fast. And so it causes a lot of problems downstream, whether it's flooding or erosion, where it's eating into the side of the riverbanks and carrying that material away. So when beavers are building dams in an area and changing that ecosystem, they are actually helping with flooding and erosion downstream. So the changes they make can be seen as good or bad. It just depends on how you're looking at them. It's all think about animals as well. I showed you some animals like the birds and the amphibians that really love it when the beavers move in. What about something like a box turtle? Well, if you know anything about box turtles, they're forest animals. They need water to drink, but they're not that hot at swimming, so they're really not going to appreciate it. Whereas a different species of turtle, like a snapping turtle, is going to think it's great because its home is expanded and there's going to be more access to food. So speaking about food, I've mentioned that beavers eat bark and they eat the soft wood of some trees, but they also will eat some of the plants that you find around these wet areas. They will eat things like cattails and rushes. They'll also sneak out of the water onto farmers' properties and steal some of the corn and the beans. So it's another reason why farmers might not particularly be fond of them. But during the winter time, the beavers need to be able to find food then. And you're not going to have the corn and the beans, and you're not going to have the cattails and other plants like that available. So beavers will actually stockpile food underwater. They'll gather a lot of soft wood and they'll keep it underwater near the entrances to their lodge. That stockpile of food also provides food for other animals. Can you think of another animal that might eat that wood that's slowly rotting underwater? Well, there's lots of little tiny bugs that live underwater. You might have seen animals like roly-polies on land. Well, they have an aquatic cousin, a water-loving, water-living cousin, and they'll help to eat and break down this wood that the beaver has brought in. Now, we're fortunate that beavers are here in Ohio because they weren't here for a very long time. Unfortunately, beavers were hunted until they were wiped out in Ohio. Now, you don't say that they were extinct because they were found in other areas. Extinct is if a species is gone from everywhere. The beavers were extirpated. So if a creature is extirpated, it means it's gone from one specific location. So beavers were extirpated from Butler County. There were none left in Butler County. Beavers were extirpated from Ohio. There were none left in Ohio. And the reason for that is to do with their thick fur. They were hunted for the fur, and a lot of those furs were sent back to Europe. So they were wiped out here, they were extirpated in Ohio. Fortunately, they've came back, and we're getting to see the changes that this keystone species is making to the habitat here. Now, a keystone species is one that modifies the natural environment and in such a way that the overall ecosystem builds upon this change. And the ponds and wetlands that the beavers have created have increased biodiversity. They've increased the number of creatures that are found in those areas. And they've also improved the overall environmental quality of those areas. So beavers is a great thing that they're back here in southwest Ohio, and hopefully we'll see some other species return in the future. Thank you.